Welcome to this lecture. So in the previous lecture we just made this simple script where we just imported this request package and we just get the response and we saw if that website is present or not. So this is basic simple script that doesn't do anything for us, but now let's see some of the important concept in the web crawling technique. So in this lecture we are going to just hijack subdomains of the main domain. So first of all, what is a subdomain? So if you just open the browser, if I just open this Wolfram Alpha, if I just search here, that is stackexchange.com, you just go down here and it is going to show us this subdomain tab showing there is a subdomain, there is a daily visitor and a fraction. So that means we'll see that there is a subdomain saying that math.stackexchange.com, gaming.stackexchange.com. so these are the subdomains. So these are the parts of your main domain. So it is also same as the domain, but it will be the part of your domain, that is the subdomain. So why we need this subdomain is basically the main domain. So similarly, if you saw in the Facebook, this is the main domain of the Facebook and it will be monitored by most of the pen testers, and if they get any error they will rectify it within a minute. So it is very hard to find the vulnerabilities in the main website. That is, in this website you will find, but they will just rectify within a minute. So if you just hijack the subdomain, maybe the light.facebook.com, so it is easier to find the vulnerabilities in the subdomain rather than just going for the main domain. So we have to just check for every domain that is subdomain of this main domain so that we can find the vulnerabilities and get to the hack of the part of the system basically. So this is very easy to hack the subdomain rather than just hacking the main domain of the system, because it is same as doing something like SQL injection or basically JavaScript cross-site scripting. In these subdomains will be easier than the main domain. So that's why we have to use some of the script to just extract that subdomain from the main domain so that we can just test for the vulnerabilities in this subdomain also. So let's see how we can just get this subdomain from our Python script. So this will be interesting lecture. So let me just remove everything, we don't need this now. So first of all, I have already told you about this subdomain. There will be the subdomain that is a part of the domain. So for the subdomain, there is a couple of word list over here. So I have just searched in the GitHub. You can also get this GitHub link in the resource section, or simply I'll just put this all of this line of code in the notepad and I'll just save this as a subdomain and I'll provide you in the resource section. Make sure you grab it from there. So this is the same code which will contain a list of a word that we just can make to the test URL. So this will be your main URL, and if we just pass mail.facebook.com, let me say, if I say something like mail.facebook.com, this will be your subdomain of the www.facebook.com. So let's see how we can just get all of these domains. So first of all, we have to now import the request package that we just installed from the previous lecture. Let's define now request, and here I'll just pass the URL. So this URL will be the test URL, and basically we have done this same coding before, that is with the try and catch block to see the request. Basically we want if that websites exist or not. So first of all, I'll just say request dot get. So this get method is going to get the URL, and basically this is going to just concatenate with your URL. So I'll just paste this URL over here. So this is going to just return, and if there is no presence of that URL, we'll just get the exception, and we have seen this in the previous lecture. We are going to get the exception that is in the form of connection error. If this is the case, I am just going to print no such subdomains. Okay, this will be your message if there is an exception. So now we have just completed our request function. Let's go over here and make our target URL. So this will be our target URL. So first of all, let me just test some of the test websites. So instead of just going for the main website, or we can simply do something like google.com. google.com. so we can test this URL, so we can see if this contains many subdomains or not. So to do that, we have now this list. So let me just go over here. I have added in the resource section, and you can just check this out. So these are the couple of word list. We have to see if this word list, or basically if this line of code has associated with our link or not, or basically our target URL or not. So first of all, we have to open this file. We have learned in the reading the file section in the basic Python how to open the file and how to read the file. So it will be quite easy for us to open the file now. So we have to make use of open statement. I'll just make the use of open statement in the path where this is located. So let me just go over here. Okay, first of all, let me just get this location real quick. So it will be right here. I'll copy this, and from here I'll just open here. So if I just paste this down, and now we have to have this subdomains.txt, which is the file. But if you see here, it is going with some error, so that means we have to give the double forward slashes in the case of Windows and the backward slashes in the case of Mac, and it will work fine in the case of Linux. You don't need to add anything in the case of Linux. So I'll just rename this. We have done this before while we just open the file. So we have forgotten one thing, the mode which we just open the file. I want to read the file, that means I'll just open the file in the mode of reading. So I'll just name this as file, and let's do something in this file. So if you see what we have in this file, we have a line. We have this one line containing a word, another line containing a word. So first of all, I want to make a loop in that file. So I'll just loop in that file. I want to just extract the word. So if you want to just remove this spaces between the line, that is done by the strip method. We have learned about this strip method in the string section. This is going to remove any white line spaces. It is, if there is something, let me say in this line, if there is this spaces, let me say in the video, if this is the spaces, it is going to remove that, and it will just make something like this. So let's go back, and after we just strip that word, we have to make now test URL. So this test URL will be our subdomain. So let's make that subdomain. So how to make that subdomain is very interesting part. So let's go over here and see the Stack Exchange. So in the Stack Exchange, we have seen this subdomain now. It has shown that there will be some word at the beginning. Instead of www, it will be some word that should be these words over here, which is mail and www. So these words will be at the beginning, and after that there will be dot and the website name, which is our target URL. So let's make that over here. So first of all, it will be word, which we just extract from this file, subdomain.txt file, which is this file. So let's make that subdomain right here, and after that we have to concatenate with dot. And now next thing is to add the target URL. So I'll just say target URL over here, and if you see, this target URL should not contains www, because it also should not contain this dot. So if you go over here, this target URL only contain this name and .com. That means we'll just remove everything. We'll just put here google.com as a target URL. So next thing is to get the response. So let's make another variable response, which will be to call this request method. So if you just go over here, this request method is going to see if that subdomain exists or not. If that exists, we'll just print out. If that doesn't, then we won't just get that URL. So there will be exception, and we'll say no such subdomains. So instead of no such subdomains, you can simply pass. So next thing is to see the responses, and this is important. If there is a responses, and if you just remember from the next lecture, in the previous lecture, response will be the response object in the status code 200. So if there is the website that is available, it will just give us the response object of 200 status code. That means if that website contains, that means it will have the response object over here. If that doesn't contain, it will have none. That means we'll just see if that response exists, then we have to print that URL because that URL exists. So we'll just say something like subdomain, let's format this, exist. So I'll just use format over here, and we have to now format with the test URL. So we have done our programming over here. So this piece of a code is from the previous lecture where we just say if that URL exists or not. It will just return us the response object with the status code, and we just open this subdomain.txt, which is file we downloaded from the GitHub, and this is containing all of these subdomains part, and we just get that word from this file. We just added with this dot in the target URL, which is our google.com. we just send this to this request to check if that domain exists or not. If that exists, then we'll just say that subdomain exists. So it is pretty much simple code. So let me run this demo now. If I just run this, let me say subdomain mail.google.com exists, and it is checking everything. It is checking google.com also exists, yum.google.com exists, blog exists, support, admin, help, ads, mobile again. So this exists. So you can see pretty much it will check everything that is over here. So it will just take a time to see everything over here because it is a bunch of a code writing over here which has many lines. So it will check everything to see if that domain exists or not. So this is the way to check for the subdomain, and you can also check for maybe for facebook.com instead of Google. You can check for now facebook.com and see what are the subdomain that is over there. In the case of the Facebook, you can see there is m.facebook exist, and you will see blog exist. So in this way you can see the subdomain of the real website from this Python script. So it is very helpful for the hackers. We'll learn about more web crawling technique in the next lecture. See you in the next one.